Oh, I was on mute. Apologies. Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Kim.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Zach.
And we're from Hunger for Technologies. So we want today to be really interactive. So make sure you comment. Whatever platform you're logged in on, you'll need to be logged in on to comment. If you're on our website, you will need a Twitch account. And speaking of our website, we have our archive page up. So make sure to visit that. In order to do that, you go to Services, Cisco WebEx, and then Webex Wednesday at 1 Archives. And you'll be able to go through and see all of our past episodes, starting with most recent, going all the way back to the first one.
Awesome. There we go. So if you are watching this if you're watching a past episode, and we're in pretty much every Wednesday at 1 o'clock, we do a live. And we do this because every organization has a need right now to host virtual meetings. It's a crazy time, and everybody really needs that virtual meetings ability. So last week, if you saw, we talked about recreating a physical event in a virtual space. This week, we will be having a similar conversation, but it's about pre-event setup and how to set up your event so it runs smoothly and the best possible. So once again, we're joined by Mr. Ben. Ben, welcome again. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. I'm glad to see that you moved the pink weights that were in the background out of your screen. So that's good.
Yeah.
Good work. So basically what we wanted to cover today is, recreating a physical event in a virtual environment. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to kind of go over the process of some of the questions that we get from people who are interested in doing different types of meetings and events, and also then hop into each of the solutions. So we're going to hop into Webex events, and we're going to show you how to set up an event from the page where you're going to schedule an event, or if you're going to schedule a training session. We're not going to so much cover Webex meetings, but we are going to talk a little bit about that at the very beginning. So a lot of times when I talk to customers of ours and they're interested in doing an event, we sit down and we go through like a laundry list of questions. So we ask them a bunch of things so that we can kind of determine what type of event they need to do. And so I'm going to share my screen here and kind of show you what this looks like. You've seen this before. It's something that we're also updating right now too. So it's something that's really important. You can just hop over to our website. It's under that same section that Kim was talking about earlier under Webex. The biggest differences that we see when we're looking at what type of event you're trying to hold is usually in these 3 categories. So either in meetings, training, or events. A lot of times the questions that are asked are, what tool should I use? Followed by, I want to do these things. And so some of those things that people ask us is, we want to be able to do breakout sessions. Okay, so if you do want to be able to do breakout sessions, you're going to want to use the training tool for now. So Webex Training, perfect. The other solutions don't currently allow you to do breakout sessions, but potentially that's a roadmap item. So another thing that we get asked is practice sessions. So practice sessions, what practice sessions allow you to do is start a session and allow everyone to kind of filter into the event. And then all of the panelists can hop into a separate session where all of the attendees can't hear what's going on and plan, okay, Zach, you're going to say this, Kim, you're going to say this, I'm going to share this, we need to make sure so-and-so's microphone sounds good, okay, Tony's still not on. Some of those kinds of things happen in the background, but then the audience isn't seeing that. They're just waiting in the main lobby, and once it's time to start the session, then we can click end practice session, and then everyone gets brought back into the main session, and then the audience can hear us. So those are some of the things to think about. If you're looking at like smaller groups, if you have let's say under 20 people, and you want it to be more similar to everyone sitting around a conference table and speaking and talking, there are some limitations to that. but you would want to use most likely Webex meetings, because then everyone has the ability to kind of unmute themselves. Everyone has the ability to share their screen. They can, blur their background if you want to have something, graying out the back of your area so that people don't see what's going on behind you. Those are some of the nice things that you can do in the different solutions. We're going to post something later on our website to update each of these sections with the new differences, since Cisco's rolled out some additional things. Another thing that's really helpful and really beneficial is if you are looking to hold a virtual event, just to reach out to our team, because it's harder to relay all of the different questions that we get and everything that you can ask, and do that easily and make it something that's transferable to this type of platform. So I would say that you can reach out to us at info@hungerford.tech or through our website, which is hungerford.tech as well. So basically what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hop into the Webex events solution. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to walk through and show you the differences in the tool, and just kind of go through the different sections in here. I'm going to try to do it pretty quickly. So if anyone has questions after the session is done, feel free to either put in a comment or a question, and we can kind of go through some of those. Most of the time, what I like to do when I get into this part is, obviously I'm going to name the event, but I usually like to uncheck the box for delete from my meetings when completed, because I like to be able to go back and see that on my calendar and see where it's at, and see the past meetings, so that I can say, oh yeah, we had this event on this date. So if it just gets deleted, then I can't find that as easily. Listing it on a public computer would just means that you're giving everyone the ability to kind of see that session on other people's calendars. So that's a nice thing too. One question that you do need to decide when we're going into this is, do I want registration required? And that's a big question, because if it's something that you want the general public to attend and you don't want people to register, you're going to say, let's put this link out on our website, or let's send it out in an email, and just allow people to attend the session. One downside to that, though, is I might not know who's showing up to my event or how many people are showing up to my event, because I don't have registration set up. Another nice thing with registration is we can create custom questions, and people can fill out custom areas. And I'll go down here and show you that as well. You can change your event password. You can use one of Cisco's random password generators, and you can go from there. But another thing in the events platform that's kind of nice is, a lot of times the events platform is used more for sales type events or larger scale meetings, like a town hall or something like that, something along those lines. And then a good thing about the Webex events platform is it can go up to 3,000 attendees. Once you go outside of that 3,000 attendees, then you're getting into the webcasting realm, which is a totally different thing. From here, we can add in time zones, which is actually really helpful. So let's say you're having an event in Central Time, and you also have customers who are Eastern Standard Time, Pacific Time, and Mountain Standard Time. I can go in here and I can add all of those different time zones, and then when I send out my invitation to everyone, they can see what the time of the event is in their specific region. So that's another nice thing too, that you can automatically add some of those time zones in here so that people can see those when the event gets sent out. This is pretty standard all the way across the board in between all of the different solutions, with one exception here. Muting upon entry for all participants in both Webex events and Webex training. When I select this, people will come into the event. They'll be muted and can't unmute themselves. If we're in Webex meetings, people can still unmute themselves. So that's one slight difference between the three solutions. A lot of times I get this question, well, can I just host my event in Webex meetings? Sure, you can, but some of the takeaways for that are, if I do mute all attendees upon entry into the session, they can still unmute themselves. So if, depending on the audience that you have people who are able to unmute themselves and say, "Is this thing on?" and yell, and so you get some older people when we've done some
younger people too don't know how to unmute, clearly.
Yeah. But so those are some of the things that you get that are definitely, you definitely need to think about them and how much control you want over your audience. If you want more control over the attendees, you're going to want to go with either events or Webex Training. And the reason that is because it allows me to not only allow them to not unmute themselves, but that you can have it where their video is turned off in events and training. So another downside to events and training is if I want to see everyone in the session, like Kim, Zach, and I see each other, you may say, okay, I do want to hold it in Webex meetings, and I'm aware of the other downsides. So we're going to post something on our site, like I was saying earlier, so that everyone can kind of see some of those pros and cons between the different solutions, because I think it will be really helpful for people as we move on from that point. In Webex events, you can also add a description or an agenda in here about what the session's about, and you can add, a lot of times what I do is I write it in either Notes or Microsoft Word, and then I paste it into here. And then when I schedule it, then I also click on the link so I can see what it looks like to see if what I was going for is showing up there.
So this would be a good spot, like if you're having a breakout session, for instance, to say like, in this breakout session, blah, we're talking about X, Y, or Z, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And a lot of times too, that's a good point that Zach just brought up. If you're talking about breakout sessions, Webex Training currently is the only platform that you can do that in, but we can also get creative with doing a Webex main event and then splitting out into breakout sessions. And we've done several events for other customers where we have either their web person or someone on their team create a landing page where they send all of the traffic to. They have a link for the main event where people can click and enter the main event. And then when it's time to go into those breakouts, they actually use other personal Webex meeting rooms. So we can get creative. So even if you don't have Webex Training or one of the meeting suite packages that Cisco offers, you can still do some of those things as long as we have an adequate number of licenses. The next thing that's a little bit different here in Webex events too is I can upload a picture about the event, or I can upload a company logo, which is most of the time what people do. So there is a little bit of branding in there. It's not much, but it's better than nothing. I can also upload host images of the presenters if I wanted to do that. And I can also upload event material. One of the biggest differences between events and training is the event material is just labeled a little bit different. It's in a different spot. So for training, most of the time it is called course material. So you'll notice that too. Training solution is used more for those training, testing, grading types of sessions. And sometimes people who want to use breakout sessions will use the training platform too, because they do want to have breakout sessions where they break it out. Mm-hmm. All right. Another important thing is in the Webex events and training platforms, I can also kind of customize who's able to see the attendee list in the session. And I can take that away, or I can give everyone the ability to see everyone and comment and message everyone directly. The reason I like this is, let's say we were holding a sales webinar, and we were trying to sell something, and it was open to everyone. One of our competitors can come onto that session, take screenshots if everyone could see everyone, and say like, hey, we got their entire customer list, and now we can market to these people or look them up and find them and then reach out to them and see if we can, do business with them. So if you are doing something that's like a sales webinar or some seminar, you may want to only allow the host, presenter, and panelists to see the attendees. And the nice thing about that is because anyone on that panel can then go in and see who the attendees are, and chat with them, see people's questions that are being asked, all of those different things. But then any of the participants can't see who else is on the session. You can also, this is also nice if you're just starting out and you haven't built a huge following. You don't have to know all of the people who are on it. So it could be just one person, we could just be talking to one person here, and no one else knows because we did a good job. What we presented was valuable, published to our YouTube channel, and then everyone else can go and see that later.
So that, I was just going to say, I have a quick question. So for that list, if you have a larger group of people and say you need like moderators, somebody who you might be the host, but you can't read everything that's going on. If you were the host and Kim and I were the moderators, that might be helpful for those people, because then you can see what's going on and just like, then you can filter the good or the bad questions to the host, or filter, hey, these people are here, these people aren't here, kind of a thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so a lot of times when you're running larger scale events, if you are in a physical event, you may have different people who fit different roles, and those same positions a lot of times transfer over into a virtual event. So, you might have someone who is a host or moderator. A lot of times that host role is filled by someone who is technical. So either someone from our team or Cisco's team who is on there assisting and answering any sort of technical questions. You might have someone who is the presenter and is actually clicking through the slide deck for all of the different panelists. And then a lot of times what we see in those situations is it's beneficial and it's helpful for the presentation of the event or seminar or whatever you're doing, virtual conference, having everyone send their slides to one person and that person present.
Yeah.
Then they can click through the slide deck for everyone, and then the presenters, depending on their technical ability, all they have to do is unmute or mute their mic. And we can also do that for them as a technical assist on the session. But a lot of times the different roles and the different positions, when we get on a call with a customer, we talk about those things, and then we do a pre-event walkthrough and we do a rehearsal, and we make sure that everyone knows what they're doing, but also is able to connect to the technology that they're using. If you get a bunch of people who are struggling to just use the tool itself, then you want to take away a lot of the things that they would be required to do and give them less. And then all they have to do is mute and unmute their mic. And it's like, anyone can do that, And
it relieves a lot of stress.
Yeah, and that's what we've had a lot of people say. It's like, oh, this is easy then. At first, they're like freaking out, like, wait, you want me to also share my PowerPoint presentation, speak, and answer Q&A questions? And then I'm like, okay, well, now that you say that, it kind of worries me. So we're going to assign, Kim, you're going to answer Q&A questions. You're going to read them out to everyone. Zach, you're going to be our technical resource. And I'm going to flip through the slide deck. And then you as the presenter in the background, that person, we'll call him Joe. And then Joe gets to speak. He can unmute and mute his mic, and then we can go from there. That's a good point, though, Zach. Another thing that you can do too is create post-event surveys. So I can send them either to a pop-up window when the session ends, or I can send them to a display in the main server window. So instead of sending it to a separate destination URL. You can also send people to a separate destination URL after the event. So let's say we were holding, a multi-part series that was going to be held over a couple months or a couple weeks or whatever it is, and you wanted to send traffic to your website so that people could register for other things that you were doing or other events or other sessions that you have. You can put it in here and send traffic to that event. Or to that URL, after your event. One thing that is important is you need to make sure that you check with your administrator, or if you're one of our customers, check with us so that we can show you where to make sure that's not blocked. Because if you just post in a link, if I just put in there something that wasn't listed as a safe URL in the admin portal, then it would block it. And then I've had a lot of people who, even though I tell them this, try to start their session, and then they say, oh, like it's saying, this link isn't working. The URL is blocked. And then I'm like, well, did you list, go in the back and whitelist it? Oh, no, we didn't do that. And then it's day of the event, we got 10 minutes. So that's something important that everyone should know. But the nice thing about that, though, is I can send traffic to whatever link I want and allow people to sign up for different sessions, see what else we got going on, and be informed with everything that's going on. You could even send them to the website and have like a video playing that says, hey, thanks for joining our event. We wanted to put this quick video together. Thank you for your time. Whatever it may be, you can get creative with it too.
I've seen it work good for not-for-profits too. Like after you have an event, go to a link or donation page or find out more.
Well, in so many conferences and so many events, you could also say like, as a thank you, tie in the little, we talked about it last week, but tying in the gift or the tote bag or something like that at the end, you could point them towards that, and it could, put the email address in here. We can get back to you, that kind of a thing as well. Like there's a lot of opportunity with this.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then a lot of times this is where we get into registration. So yes, you can register and sign up all of your attendees inside Webex, and you can import a list and all of that. But what we've found works even better for most of our customers, if not all of them, is you have lists. You have marketing tools that you're using like MailChimp and Constant Contact, where once you schedule this event, I can take out the things that I need and copy it and paste it and send it out from my tool, where I can add more marketing pieces, where if it sends out from Webex, it's just like a basic email and it says, you've been invited to whatever. And then they can click on it and register or click on the link and join. So it's going to look a lot better and a lot more in line with your brand and in your normal content if you push it out through your own marketing resources. So in that same stream of thought, you can also just take those same links and put it into an Outlook calendar invite and send it that way too if you wanted to. So you have a couple different options there. So most of the time I tell people, like, you already have a list, or you have lists of people grouped in Outlook or whatever mail tool you're using, and it's just easier. It's going to be easier for you to do it that way once we schedule it in here. So a lot of times that's what I don't go through this a lot. All right, the next thing that we're going to talk about too that is a little bit different between the different solutions is registration. So in Webex meetings, I can't have registration required, but in Webex events and Webex training, I can. So if registration is important, one of those two tools is going to always be the choice for you. All right, so I can click here and I can customize the form. So let's see if I can make it a little bit bigger. What it's always going to default to requiring is first, last name, email address. And then from here, you have choices of showing these by checking these boxes. So check mark means it's going to be shown but not required. So they don't have to fill it out if they don't want to. Best practice usually is to uncheck all of these boxes and only require the ones that you need. You can also create questions, text box, and say, hey, I want to ask them a question where they write their own answer, and then we look at it later. So you can ask, you can put custom questions with text box, check boxes, option buttons, drop-down lists, and you can also manage your past registration questions that you've added in here, and then you can upload them and then save it. And when you send out that registration invite, they'll have your custom questions on there as well. Another thing you can do too in the events platform, I can even send traffic after someone registers. So maybe you want to have this link go somewhere else, destination URL after the event, and maybe you want to have the destination URL after registration go to something more specific. So I do have the ability to do two different ones inside of the session. So you can send traffic to a page to register for additional events after they register or after the event, or you could even hit them with both. Same link here and here.
Just to double check.
Yeah, double check. Probably get 10% more. And then another thing too is if you do have registration required, you can click on this approval box, and you can set up custom approval rules in the events platform, which is unique to events. And I can come in here and create a lot of if this, then that, then approve. And it can just check and say, okay, we're a school. We have a .edu, or, let's say ferris.edu, because that's where I went to school. Check that. If someone has that, then approve them, because this is an internal only session. If they don't have that, then they don't meet the requirements and they're blocked, and that they're denied automatically. So you can set up some of those custom approval rules too. If I say no approval is required, then it will automatically just allow people to get into the session right away. So, hey
Ben, question on that. If you put no approval, can you delete anyone from the attendance list? Like afterwards, say, ooh, I see a bunch of people who aren't supposed to be on here. You can delete them and not have to necessarily go through 1,000 people and click approve.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, you can go back once the event is scheduled and click edit event. And there's also next to edit event a manage registrations. So you can click on manage registrations. And if you see anyone who isn't supposed to be in there, or anyone who has an email that looks, there's sometimes you see them and you can tell that this person is like from some foreign country and somehow stumbled across your link and registered for your event. And you're like, oh, I don't know. You could send that person an email and say, hey, just saw that you registered for the session. Why are you registering? Or if you know that it's some sort of a spam email.
I was just going to say, in this world of spam and phishing, and it's going to happen more likely than not. So that's a really good question. Yep.
Yeah, and so a lot of times, depending on what type of event or conference you're holding, you can go in and look at the registrations. You don't need to do it every day, but most of the time, like let's say you schedule the event a couple weeks out, and you have 4 weeks out from the event. Maybe you want to check it every Friday, and then week of the event, check it at the end of every day. Presenters and panelists. A lot of times in the past, what I've done is recommended that anyone who's going to be a panelist is added here and then added to the invitation list. And especially if you want that person to be an alternate host, what it will do is we'll give them a pin. So if something were to happen to you, and let's say, your audio wasn't working or you're muted like Kim was earlier, then I could easily take over as the alternate host and go from there. So that's a nice thing. I always tell people too, like, hey, these are the people that I have on the events, most, and then I can check mark these boxes, add them as alternate hosts or panelists, and invite them to the session, and then they're saved there. So if you have the same panelists too, it's a lot easier to just go in there and select them, add them to the invitation list, and send out invites. One thing that is important to note about this, though, is if you require registration and the panelist doesn't register, even though you say, hey, you need to register, day of the event, it won't let them into the session. So one way to get around that is inside of the session, send them an invitation and do not require registration, and then they'll be brought in as an attendee, and then you can promote them to panelists. We'll probably show that off on next week's event too, when we're talking about during the event, managing the different solutions. Normally you don't need a panelist password for this, so you don't want to make it more complicated for people who are either coming to present for you or people who are higher up in leadership positions in your company. Okay, I have some customizations that I can do here for reminder emails, follow-up emails, pending, approved, rejected, and I can click on any of these and customize them too. I'm not going to go into all of that, but you do have that ability. You can change the dates for some of these and send them out and custom send them out however you want. A lot of times it's more beneficial to do that from your own marketing tool. All right, now we're going to hop into Webex Training. So a lot of the stuff I'm going to skip over if it's already something that's covered inside of Webex events. One of the big things in Webex Training, the biggest difference is the breakout sessions and the testing, instant grading, and scoring. If you're using it for those purposes, you're most likely going to want to use the Webex Training tool. One thing to note here is if you check mark this box, this session will have over 500 attendees. This is the difference between Webex Events and Webex Training. You can go up to 1,000 in Webex Training. If you do go over 500 though, you need to check mark this box to prioritize clear audio and video. It'll take away private chat and active talker visual cues to maintain good audio and video in the session. It'll also take away the attendees will not be able to send video and view other attendee names. It strips that out so that it's not using as much bandwidth inside of the session. Always uncheck this too. I don't like when it automatically deletes after it ends. It's more of a personal choice than anything. And in Webex Training, the thing that I like to do usually is send me a copy of the invitation. A lot of times when I'm doing trainings, it's with smaller groups, and I can just send that copy of the invitation to myself and forward it along to whatever team I need to, and then everyone has it. So that's super easy and super helpful for me. So most of the time, that's exactly what I do. Audio conference settings, don't mess with these. Keep them at what they are. Every once in a while, I have someone who chooses something and then is like, someone isn't able to do callback. And I'm like, well, what did you do to the audio conference settings? Well, I thought it'd be fun to play around with it. Do you know what those things mean? No? Okay, well, just leave it at Webex Audio then. And there's different things. We can talk about that if someone really had serious questions about it, but most of the time, leave these as is. If you have people calling in from outside the United States, you do want to display global call-in numbers. And if you want to mute the attendees upon entry, you can check mark that box as well, similar to Webex Events. Entry and exit tone I've talked about a lot of times. I don't like it. I usually click no tone. Anything that you do, make sure you don't use announce name.
Oh, wow.
Because it'll say, Ben has joined the meeting. Ben has left the meeting. Ben has joined the meeting. Ben has left the meeting. I had that one time where Greg and I were on a session with several people at Cisco, and there was some younger people who were running the session. They turned that on, and there was like 980 people.
Oh my goodness.
And it kept saying, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the worst. And then it was an interesting session. All right.
I bet a lot of people left the meeting.
A lot of people did. Yeah.
And you were told about every single one.
Yeah, we all got to hear that. I think a lot of people left because of that reason. All right.
I would.
One thing that is unique in Webex Training that the other platforms don't have currently is the ability to add different session types. So you can have a single session class, you can have a reoccurring single session class, and it can recur daily, weekly, monthly, specific days, and it ends after a certain number of sessions or on a specific date. So you can do that, which is really nice.
Mm-hmm.
I can have a multiple session course, which is cool because what happens there is attendees register for that one and are registered automatically for all of the other sessions. So let's say it's 6 weeks. They're registered for the entire sequence and they don't have to send out 6 different invites. That is one nice thing that the training solution has that the other ones don't. Another thing it also has is if I want to do irregular sessions, I can come in here and add, I can come in here and I can add irregular sessions. So apparently it didn't like what I was doing, but what I can do is add another session at different dates and times, and it doesn't have to be like every Wednesday at 1. It can be this Wednesday at 1, next Thursday at 2, and I can add all of those different sessions, and then I can also go in there and edit each session separately later, which is really cool. So I'm a big fan of that. Estimated duration, just basically, a lot of times we get this question is, if my estimated duration is 1 hour and I go 2 hours, is it going to shut me down? No. So there you go. I just answered that question too. Registration, registration's found a little bit in just a little bit different spot from events. If I come all the way down into about the middle of the page, I can come in here and I can require attendee registration, set passwords similar to events. I can automatically approve all registration requests if I'd like. And I can put in maximum number of registrants allowed. A lot of times we see this with people who are doing trainings. They say, hey, I can only have 8 people. One instructor to 8 people. That's my max. So I can go in there and I can put in 8 is the max. And then I can also allow wait list sign up. So if someone else says, hey, I got to cancel, then the next person on the wait list is automatically registered, or I can manually register them from the wait list. So sometimes you can be sneaky if you want and say, oh, I know Zach spends a lot of money with us. We're going to manually register him and put him in that open up spot. So you want to be shady? That's on you.
Some would call that smart as well. You never know.
Yeah, just depending on how you look at it.
Exactly.
If you want to be smart / shady, then yeah. I can also put in here too, attendees are allowed to cancel up to a certain time before the session starts. So if you've monetized a training, you can say, hey, the cutoff to cancel is, let's say 3 days before the session starts, and then we know we can get a couple more people in there if someone was to drop out, and they can refund their money. So you can put that in there as well. That's the difference too between Webex Training and Webex Events. Same situation here with attendees and presenters. One thing that is different in Webex Training is I can add some additional security steps that you may not want to add. So I can exclude the password sent to attendees so that it doesn't get sent out over email, but then you have to figure out a way to get that password to someone in a separate way. I've had top secret government contractors and government institutions do this and use it. And then I asked them, well, where's that password stored when you call them and say, okay, the password for the event is this? I'm like, I guarantee it's on a sticky note on the outside of their computer. And then one guy said, I'm going to walk down to Gina's office right now and see. And he said, hey, Gina, where do you store that event password that we called everyone and gave? Oh, it's right here. Pulls the sticky note off outside the computer. And he goes, okay, I guess we don't need to use that. And so I'm like, yeah, it's going to create more hassle for you for the most part. Because someone's going to store it some way like that. And it's just kind of going to ruin the purpose. So it's up to you if you want to use it. And then attendees must have an account on this service to attend the session. That means they have to be a registered account on your WebEx site in order to attend the session. This only comes into play a lot of times with colleges, universities, or internal institutions that are doing trainings for internal employees only. Otherwise, I wouldn't use that. I can also come in here and edit the session options and turn on, turn off different things. So I can turn on, chat, file transfer, video thumbnails, and update some attendee privileges. And I can also, if I forget something in here, most of the time when I get into my actual training session, I can go in under the participants panel, and we'll probably highlight that too next week, and edit it on the fly. So if you do make a mistake here, most of the time you're able to edit it inside of the actual session. Another thing that you could do is send traffic to a destination URL similar to events, but I can also customize a greeting message when an attendee joins. I'm not as big of a fan of this as you would think, because mainly it shows up in kind of a weird spot. So most people don't even know it. Like, they don't even notice that there's a greeting message there because it's on a tab with all the session information anyhow, and it kind of gets lost because it's just pretty basic. So a lot of times I tell people, like, let's kind of pass that unless you really want to add it, because it's not a huge reason to have it, in my opinion, but that's up to you. Okay. If I want to do breakout sessions, obviously I'm going to right now use the training platform, and I can come in here and I can enable pre-session assignments, and I can automatically, if I know how many people are going to be on the session, assign attendees, set number of breakout sessions, let's say 4, and let's say there's 20 attendees. I can go in there and I can set those and automatically assign everyone. Or when it's time, I can go into the session early and manually assign each person into the individual breakout sessions and create my own breakout sessions, which I'll also cover next week. A little bit different from, excuse me, a little bit different from the events platform is this section where it's called session information.
It looks like you have more details that you can put in. Like you have more options because it's going to be, you never know what you, I mean, if you use this for breakout sessions, you would probably need a little bit more information. So this is nice that they have that for you.
Absolutely. And a lot of times in events, you can still put in your agenda and the description of the event. You can put it all together on one.
Yeah.
But it is nice to have them broken out into 2 individual ones. And then for graphics, most of the time companies put their logo. So that's usually what goes there. And then if we go down from here, I was talking about earlier, uploading event material, adding course material, basically will allow them to, when they click on the link to join the session, it'll show them that there's course material that they can download, and it'll be available for them when they want to join the session for the event. So whatever the training is or whatever the type of event that you want to hold inside of the training platform, you can add course material here. And then one of the biggest things that the training platform does is uses tests. I can create tests in the test library over here. I'm not going to go over a lot of that because for time reasons. But you can create tests, and then when I come in here, I can add the tests and say, okay. I created a couple fake tests that just have some goofy things in there. And then I can edit the settings. And you can do it that way. I said I wasn't going to go over a lot of it, but I just went a little bit in.
A little bit of a teaser.
And then from there, you want to schedule your session. And once you schedule the session, you're going to see, and it's going to be the same with Webex events and with Webex training. So let's see here. Okay, so then I can get the session information page, and I can get that information. I can add this session to my calendar, and it'll also send me a email with all the information if I check this box, send a copy of the invitation to me. And then I can forward that along to anyone, or I can put it in our marketing system. So I know this was a little bit longer one than some of the others, but I felt like it was helpful and beneficial. I'll stop there.
I mean, yeah, that is a lot of information to kind of digest and dig in. But if you were here last week, you kind of understand that this is a big deal. This is a big topic to cover. Kind of like we said at the intro, like virtual events are going to happen. Virtual meetings are going to happen for the next couple months, if couple years. You guys have anything else to put in before we close it out?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is when we went through the pre-event setup, there's a lot of different things that go on behind the scenes that is really hard to just like recreate and have it feel authentic. Mm-hmm. So if you are looking to host a virtual event, reach out to us and we can go through that process with you. And even if we don't end up doing business with you and kind of helping you manage your virtual event, I think what you'll take away from it and the process that we go through will really be beneficial in helping you run a better virtual event. Yeah,
and it's not, it is a big deal to run this. If you're not technologically savvy, if you're kind of nervous, if you're, any of those things, reach out to us. You can reach out to us at a couple different spots. Our email is info@hungerford.tech. And our website is hungerford.tech. If you are looking for a full feature free trial of Webex, or you're a current Webex customer with questions, you can also reach out to us at those links. Next week, we'll be having a similar conversation on running your virtual event and tips and tricks on how to make it flow best. So Ben and Kim will be back. I'll be back as well. But from all of us at Hungerford Tech, thanks for joining us. See us next Wednesday at 1 o'clock for Webex Wednesdays at 1. Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.